Okay, so this week on Last Laugh, I want to talk to you about travel. Like most things in life, traveling is the kind of thing that you learn, the more you do of it, the more clever stuff you learn. You know, you come to understand things that only experienced travellers get. Let me give you a really simple example. My local airport is Manchester Airport in the UK. Now, I'm lucky because I fly a lot. Of course, I get sent all over the world. I'm an incredibly lucky guy. I therefore have passes to priority lounges and priority access this and that, whatever, which is great. But most people, of course, don't. And let's be honest, airports can be hideous. They can be so loud. So what if you want peace and quiet? Well, it turns out in Manchester Airport that Ryanair, who use the airport for some of their flights only leave before 10:30 in the morning and then after 3:30 in the afternoon. So if you arrive, let's say, for a 2 p.m. flight at 11:30, if you know, you can just wander down to the deserted Ryanair part of the airport and there you will find carpeting. You will find silence. You will find chairs with no arms, which mean that you can sit and read or play games, but you can also just lie down and go to sleep for an hour if that's what you want to do. You will find hot drinks machines. You will find cold drinks machines. You will find snack machines. You'll find gaming machines. And the common thread for all those is plugs. And where there are plugs, there are spare plugs. And where there are spare plugs, that means charging up your laptop, your phone, your iPad, your paint stripper, whatever you've brought with you. Just an example of knowing what's going on by doing it a lot. You just get to know this stuff. Okay? Now, another thing, to give you another example of ways that you just gradually learn, and I'm going to use a little controversial word here. You learn about profiling. Profiling is basically where you look at your fellow passengers and think, who do I want to be near? Who do I think would be my friend on this flight? Who do I not want to be sitting next to on the plane? Not that I have a lot of choice. So you're always kind of looking around at fellow passengers. Here's a simple example. There are two queues for check-in. There's only one customer at each. One of them is a 40-something guy in a suit with just a laptop bag. No suitcase at all. On the other side of the barrier, there's a mum, a dad, 5 children, 14 down to 4, and all 7 of them have got suitcases, and all 7 of them are in shorts and flip-flops. Who do you go and stand behind? Well, the answer is you go and stand behind the middle-aged guy, because the chances are he's been there a lot before, he's on business, all he wants to do is go, here I am, hand me my ticket, I'll be off to the priority lane in security. So it's easy. You profile the passengers. Sometimes, though, you don't get a choice. And my story today is about a time when I didn't get the choice. And things went, well, not particularly badly wrong for me, but things went pretty interestingly wrong, as you'll see. So I was in an American airport. It shall remain nameless because it wasn't the airport's fault. And there were 2 queues for check-in. One of them, the priority lane, had only one customer. The main lane had the best part of 200 people. They were all, going for their holiday flights to wherever. So clearly, since I'm allowed to, I go into the priority lane. And as I get there, the customers who are ahead of me, the one unit, are just going forward. Very slowly. They're a couple. They're quite elderly. Now, I have no problems with couples. I'm part of one. I have no problems with elderly. By some measures, I am and I intend to be. But they sluggish, laid back, relaxed, not quite sure what the word is, but let's say it took a little while for them to get themselves and all their gear to the front. And at this point, I'm thinking there's going to be trouble. Because I can tell, because I've done this a lot before, they are about to enter the world of excess baggage. Now, a lot of you may be thinking that airlines create excess baggage because they want your money. They don't. They don't. All they want is you not to bring too much stuff with you. That's all it's for. So, you know those people who they're packing at home and they go, I think I'm going to take the kitchen sink with me because maybe the kitchen sink in our apartment in Barbados won't be as good as the kitchen sink that we have here in our home in Sweden or England or Botswana. Don't take the kitchen sink. This couple, well, it looked like they'd taken the kitchen sink and more. It's fair to say that when you looked at all their suitcases, and there were plenty of them, it looked like if you took out half the stuff, they'd still be full. So as I say, I could tell bad things were about to happen to these two. So here's what happened. They put everything on the scales, and the lovely check-in lady says, there's going to be a bit of excess baggage. Now that use of the word bit, understatement time. If it had been me, I'd have been giggling at them. This is how I'd have done it. I just wouldn't have helped it. So here's the thing. Little bit of excess baggage. It's $968.42, please. I mean, who's got $1,000 to pay on excess baggage? Not these two, that's for sure. So they start arguing. This is terrible. What do they think is going to happen? I ask myself, and the passengers behind me who are starting to pile up, even in the priority lane. So what do you think is going to happen? Do they imagine that eventually the check-in lady will just say, you know what? We don't really mind. It's only $1,000. Shove it all in. We'll sort it out. It's not going to happen. So while all this is going on, I have plenty of time to admire my surroundings and actually admire something very particular. Because while the guy is busy really arguing with the check-in lady, the wife, or the lady in this partnership, she's got one hand on the check-in desk and the other on her walking stick. Sorry, I'll put that there, walking stick. Now, if you're thinking walking stick, maybe you're thinking thin and white and, like for partially sighted people. No, not that at all. And if you're thinking hill walking, wooden, knobbly, solid, practical, all kind of very, very firm and grounded. No, not like that at all. I've had a week to work out how I'm going to explain this to you, and it's still difficult. Basically, it was a kind of cross between a South African rainbow nation kind of motif, and I guess I'd call it a Maori design, right? But it wasn't just the colourfulness of it. It was the fact that this was not what I would call a matte finish, to use a painting term. This was glossy, this was slick, this kind of reflected the light. It was almost not prismatic. What's the word I'm looking for? Hyper. I can't think what it's called. It's where you can sort of see through it, and as you tilt it, you get sort of different pictures. It begins with H, but anyway, I'll think of that. It just looked glorious, and it was slick. Very interesting. Anyway, they pile forward, and eventually they go, so what can we do about this? And I think, yes! Now we're in business, because now she's going to explain that you have to leave some stuff behind, they'll get it down to below the weight, and all will be fine, and we can all go home about our business. So they start taking things out, but oh my lord, they start arguing about everything. Here's an example. They get a pair of shoes out of one of the suitcases. He says, I've got to take those. She says, no you don't. They're nearly worn out. They're 15 years old. He says, I know, I want to take them home. She said, they've got a great big flap in the heel. He says, I know, that's why I'm going to have them repaired when I get home. She says, if you get them repaired when you get home and you think of all the money we can save by not taking them home, you can have a new pair of shoes. He says, I don't want a new pair of shoes. I want my old pair of shoes. That's just one item. On it goes, on and on and on. And as this is happening, basically I can see their living room virtually sort of coming out around the check-in desk. It's like, it gets to the point where I honestly wouldn't be surprised to find a 50-inch plasma TV come out, three-piece suite, and a dining room table. They've got everything else in there. I mean, crazy. Anyway, on it goes. They keep getting rid of stuff. And then out from one of the suitcases comes this big white pot of cream. Now, the best I can describe it is like face moisturizing cream, but only if you had a face the size of the moon, right? Because you could never get through that much white, gunky face cream in, a lifetime. It was huge, this thing. And it turns out, by listening, and it's not just me, there are all the people behind me and all the people in the main queue, it turns out by listening that it is this cream that is responsible for this lovely translucence on the walking stick. It's why it looks so gorgeous. Basically, they keep treating it with this stuff, this white cream. So they start arguing about this. And it's like, you've got to put it in, you've got to save it. No, I don't want to take it. I want to take it home. Well, why don't you treat it now and we could take just a little bit? No, I need the whole jar. It's very expensive. Yeah, but when we get back, you've got plenty more there. Anyway, eventually, she loses the argument. It's left on the side. They close all the suitcases. They get everything onto the scales, and the scales go tick, 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 and hover just before the excess baggage mark. Yes! I think I actually literally punched the air at that point, and everyone's like craning in to see whether it hits the excess baggage or not. Great, we're in business, I think. Zip it up, let's go home. Fantastic. Except then the lady, having seen that she's there just before the line, picks up this jar of cream for a walking stick and starts shoving it back in the suitcase. At this point, I snapped. I don't often snap. I snapped in a very British, very polite way. I walked forward. I felt responsible for the people behind me apart from anything else because I was at the front of this increasing queue. We were up to about 25 minutes at this point. I put a gentle hand on each of their shoulders. I said, "Hi there. I hope you don't mind me interrupting. This lady's doing a fantastic job. She's been trying to help you. And we all understand you've got a terrible situation here. It's very difficult for you. But you know what? You're at the point where you're not going to pay excess baggage. You really don't need to start this again. Because I can tell you, as an experienced traveller, that if you go over the line, this lady is going to start charging you hundreds of dollars again. More importantly, you're getting pretty close to where she's going to have to call security. And nobody wants that. We want you to get home safely and everyone else who's got their flights to get on their planes safely as well. So just zip everything up. Let's go home." And the lady turns to me and defiantly takes this jar of cream and shoves it into the suitcase. And I can't believe it because there's no way in the world this is going to work out well. Tick, 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 tick. And impossibly, it was still under the limit. There was no excess baggage despite this vast tub of white cream for a walking stick. It made no difference to the weight. And she looked at me with a beatific smile and she said, "You needn't have worried. Our cane gel's light." I'll see you next week on Downtime.